Have you ever questioned the reason why certain people seem to be blessed with constant fortune, while others find themselves submerged in continuous adversities? Is it merely coincidence, or is there a superior energy that determines these events? In today's content, we will analyze the principle of karma, a millennial spiritual doctrine that maintains that our acts, whether constructive or destructive, generate direct consequences in our existence. What happens when the enlightened violate this principle? Stay with us to know the answer. Most of us have heard about karma, that cosmic law that governs our existences and determines that everything we emit toward the cosmos, positive or negative, eventually returns to us. But did you know that there is a particular group of people, whom we will call the enlightened, who carry an even deeper obligation? Regarding compliance with this law, the enlightened are those people who have achieved an elevated degree of consciousness, have cultivated refined spiritual capacities, and have been chosen to assist humanity in extraordinary ways. These beings maintain a more intimate connection with universal energies and, consequently, must exercise maximum precaution with their ideas, expressions, and behaviors. Consider for an instant that you form part of the enlightened. Your purpose is to orient others toward clarity, heal pains of the soul, and motivate people to exist according to superior values. But what would happen if in a moment of fragility or seduction you decide to break the principle of karma? Perhaps you become irritated with someone and project evil toward them. Or maybe you let yourself be dominated by greed and execute some fraudulent action to achieve immediate gains. Reflect on the repercussions this would generate not only in you, but in all those you have promised to assist. Karma, being such an intense energy, will not absolve your violations simply because you are one of the enlightened. In reality, it's probable that your sanction will be even more rigorous, considering that you have broken the faith that the cosmos has placed in you. However, not everything is unfavorable. Being part of the enlightened also grants you an extraordinary capacity to positively impact the world. Each occasion when you transmit love, mercy, and luminosity toward others, you are planting germs that will flourish as graces for you and for those who surround you. Each gesture of altruistic help, each expression of support, each pure idea is amplified and extends, generating currents of positivity that renew lives. For this reason, if you recognize yourself as one of the enlightened, I suggest that you deeply value your commitment to the principle of karma. Stay conscious of your thoughts, words, and conduct at every instant. When you perceive the inclination to execute something harmful, stop and evoke your purpose. How will this impact your karma and that of those you support? And if on some occasion you have failed and have broken the law, do not mistreat yourself or evaluate yourself harshly. Acknowledge, assimilate the lesson, and continue with renewed dedication. Keep in mind that karma is an energy of evolution, not punishment. When you lament genuinely and dedicate yourself to correcting your path, the cosmos will absolve you and provide you the possibility to continue evolving. The notion of karma arises from Sanskrit and means act or action at its foundation. The principle of karma establishes that each act produces a response, similar to throwing a rock in a lake. The vibrations that are created propagate and finally return to the initial place. This doctrine is found in multiple spiritual currents, from Hindu traditions to Buddhist ones, and proposes that the cosmos preserves harmony through acts and their effects. In the framework of the enlightened, those who possess superior understanding or connection with the spiritual dimension, breaking the principle of karma can generate even more serious effects. The enlightened possess broader knowledge of cosmic principles and, consequently, a greater obligation to proceed in consonance with them. Breaking this norm not only impacts their own spiritual development, but can also provoke imbalances on a universal scale. Since remote epochs, spiritual guides have transmitted that the key to eluding adverse repercussions of karma is complete attention to our acts. This means staying alert to our motivations and their potential effects on others and on ourselves. For the enlightened, this attention results even more vital. Their function doesn't consist only of avoiding adverse karma, but also of orienting others toward an existence in harmony with spiritual principles. The wisdom of the enlightened is communicated through teachings, ceremonies, and disciplines that foment harmony and spiritual development. The transgression of the principle of karma by an enlightened being can be interpreted as a betrayal of their purpose and of those who trust in their orientation. Spiritual doctrines indicate that this type of infraction can generate particularly severe karma not only for the person, but also for their circle. For this reason, the enlightened must exist with an elevated level of rectitude and dedication toward universal principles. Contemplation and reflection constitute fundamental instruments to stay on the adequate path. Through these disciplines, the enlightened can examine their acts and amend any deviation before they transform into major conflicts. Self-observation allows people to see beyond their personal ambitions and contemplate collective benefit. The principle of karma instructs us that each minimal action has importance and that we all form part of a broader network. The enlightened especially must constantly remember that their function is to conserve and safeguard this equilibrium. By transgressing the principle of karma, they not only damage themselves, but also those who seek their orientation and knowledge. Mercy and forgiveness are significant elements of karma. Although the principle of karma seems rigorous, there also exists space for reparation and amendment. For the enlightened, recognizing a fault and adopting actions to remedy, it can contribute to mitigating adverse karma. In this aspect, the principle of karma is not only a sanctioning force, but also an occasion for spiritual development and transformation. Authentic understanding of karma transcends the simple idea of sanction and reward. It refers to learning and transforming through our experiences. The enlightened, with their expanded understanding and superior connection, possess the ability and duty to exemplify this principle before others. The principle of karma summons us to exist with rectitude, attention, and mercy. For the enlightened, this summons transforms into a duty to orient others on the path of spiritual equilibrium. The transgression of this principle by the enlightened not only generates individual effects, but also broader impacts on the spiritual fabric of humanity. For this reason, millennial wisdom emphasizes that those with greater spiritual knowledge must live with unalterable dedication toward universal principles. Only in this way can they realize their authentic purpose and assist others to discover their own path of development and transformation. The principle of karma at its foundation is the cosmic norm of cause and consequence. Each act we execute, each idea we conceive produces an energy that returns to us in some way. It's like throwing a rock in a lake. The vibrations propagate and finally return to the initial place. But for the enlightened, those beings who have achieved a superior degree of consciousness and spiritual obligation, this norm functions in an even more intense and transcendent way. Consider for an instant that you have access to knowledge and spiritual power that transcends the common. With that great power comes great obligation, and it's here where the karmic law appears that the enlightened must not break under any motive. This essential law is based on the principle of non-interference with others' free will. The enlightened, with their wisdom and elevated abilities, could easily manipulate cosmic energies for personal benefit or to influence others' destiny. However, proceeding thus would constitute a severe violation of karmic law, with effects that go much beyond what we can conceive. The karma produced by such action would not only impact the enlightened being in this existence, but could generate repercussions through multiple lives. But why is this law so vital for the enlightened? The answer is found in the fragile equilibrium of the cosmos. Each being possesses their own path of learning and spiritual development. The enlightened are present to orient, inspire, and occasionally protect, but never to intervene directly with the lessons that each soul must live by itself. Transgressing this law would not only modify others' path, but would also block the enlightened being's own spiritual development. Imagine a gardener caring for a beautiful garden. Their function is to provide appropriate conditions for plants to develop, but they cannot make flowers open prematurely or fruits ripen instantly. In the same way, the enlightened nourish humanity's spiritual growth, but they cannot force or accelerate each person's natural process of evolution. Now, you might question how the enlightened can realize their mission without violating this karmic law. The key resides in delicacy and respect toward free will. The enlightened function as towers of light illuminating the path for those who seek truth. They transmit their wisdom through example, instruction, and delicate orientation, but always allowing each person to make their own choices and assimilate from their own experiences. This norm also functions as a safeguard for the enlightened themselves. By renouncing direct manipulation of others' destiny, they stay in tune with the most sublime energies of the cosmos, conserving their own spiritual rectitude, and eluding falling into the temptations of ego and misused power. However, it's fundamental to understand that this norm doesn't mean inactivity. The enlightened play a dynamic role in the world, laboring tirelessly to elevate global consciousness. Their influence reveals itself in more discreet ways, motivating through arts, letters, music, fomenting mercy and understanding, and operating as facilitators for the spiritual awakening of those who are prepared to advance to the next level in their transformation. Now I invite you to meditate on how this knowledge can be implemented in your own existence. Although perhaps you don't recognize yourself as one of the enlightened in the most sublime sense, all of us possess the capacity to favorably impact others' existences. How can you transmit your luminosity and knowledge respecting the free will of those who surround you? In what way can you become a guide for others without imposing your desire? Remember, authentic power is not found in dominating or manipulating, but in motivating and elevating. By respecting this karmic norm in our daily life, we not only avoid producing adverse karma, but we also harmonize with the most sublime forces of the cosmos, transforming ourselves into conduits for luminosity and divine love. Before finalizing, I wish to share with you a final reflection. All of us, in a certain way, are enlightened, chosen to be here in this specific instant of history with our particular gifts and experiences. The way we respect that choice, honoring others' path while illuminating our own, is what truly characterizes our spiritual journey. I hope this content has motivated you and provided clarity in your spiritual journey. Thank you for remaining until this section of the video. If it has pleased you, I invite you to write a favorable comment. On the contrary, if it hasn't pleased you, I equally request that you write me a comment so I can perfect this material and it be to everyone's liking. If you made it to this point, I congratulate you. You are among the scarce people who possess the ability to maintain so much concentration, and so I know that you made it here. Comment, "I am conscious," and I will greet you individually in the comments. Until the next encounter.